Hey everyone, this is Corrie from This and That, and in today's video, I'm going to be showing you a bunch of different ways that you can use almost your entire turkey for future meals for your family. Stay tuned. So I have this lovely 19-pound turkey. This particular one was fresh. This time of the year is a great time to go buy a turkey. And if you can afford to get a couple of extra turkeys, it's a really good time to put extra meat and bone broth into your fridge and your freezer for future meals for your family. Right now, a lot of frozen turkeys are 49 cents a pound, and when else can you get things like ground turkey for 49 cents a pound? And granted, there are a lot of bones and some skin and fat that you will not use on the turkey, but I will show you at the end how much I can get off of this bird to use. So I'm going to be making some ground turkey with this bird. I'm also going to be making roasting what is left and having some nice meat for future meals. And I'm also going to make a really nice bone broth as well. So there are a lot of different ways that you can use this bird up completely and make some great meals for your family. So this is a bowl of mostly breast meat with also some dark leg meat and a little bit of fat mixed in. And I'm going to be making ground turkey with this. I'm going to be using my Kitchenaid attachment for my Kitchenaid Mixer, but you can use any meat grinder that you might have at home, which will work just fine. I'm going to be putting this in the freezer for just a short bit, so that way the meat is just slightly frozen and it will stay together a little bit more going through my grinder. So I have my Kitchenaid mixer going here with my meat grinder attachment on it, and I'm adding some strips of turkey breast and making myself some nice fresh ground turkey. I do have a little bit of fat in here because when I make different meals, it's just nice to have that little fat because turkey is pretty lean. I'm doing a little bit more coarser grinding, just because most of mine's going to just end up in things like chili anyway. So it doesn't need to be super fine for me. This is perfect for what I'm going to use it for. I can measure out a couple of 1-pound packages. So here we have a nice, really good size bowl. This is a 6-quart bowl, and it's a decent amount here for what I did cut off the turkey because, like I said, I wanted to use the rest for soups and stews and bone broth. But this is great to supplement what we normally buy from the grocery store because turkey's usually pretty expensive. There was a time I'd get it for like $2.99 a pound, but this is way cheaper when you can almost get it for, 75 cents to 99 cents a pound. That sounds much better to me. So I'm going to vacuum seal this and get it ready for the freezer so we can make some chili. So I ended up with 4.5 pounds of ground turkey from the turkey that I took apart, and the rest of it is cooking in the oven. We are going to enjoy the rest of that later on. And then I'll also be using the bones to make some bone broth. So really not bad grinding your own, making your own ground turkey that you can use for you and your family. Looking at what I get from one turkey, and I mean this was mostly just the breast meat and some of the leg meat. Getting all of this was, I think, worth it, and I'd definitely do this again. So this is what the turkey looked like when I was finished cooking it. And here's the other side, so you can see I did take some leg meat. And this is pretty much what was left of the bird is what is in the pan here. I've just started my turkey stock, and I've got bones in there, a little bit of skin, carrots, celery, peppercorn, parsley, and a bay leaf. This I'm going to let sit in my crock pot for about 12 hours, so tomorrow morning I'll be able to take it out and have some nice bone broth. So right now I am scooping out the solids from my bone broth, the bones, the carrots, and other vegetables, and there's also a decent amount of meat that was on some of these bones that I'm going to also separate. So this is just what it looks like after you've had it sitting for about 12 to 24 hours, depending on how long you decided to let it sit in your crock pot. I'm going to ladle out the bone broth into a 4-cup measuring cup. It's just a little bit easier for me to pour it from the measuring cup into the strainer instead of trying to pick up the entire crock pot pan and pour that in. So I'm just going to do this, and then I'll show you how I strain it into another bowl. I strain it a couple of times just to make sure I can get out all the solids that I can. And then we're going to have some delicious bone broth. So I've got a strainer set up over a large stock pot, and I'm adding my bone broth. I wish I had a little bit larger strainer, but this does work because it's a very fine mesh one. Ooh, look at that delicious bone broth. And I'll do this several more times to get everything out of the crock pot and into the stock pot. I'm now going to strain the bone broth a second time, just to really make sure that I get out any solids that might have been left behind. And I have an 8-cup Pyrex measuring bowl that I'm going to use to put my bone broth in. So again, going to strain it one last time. I've done it 3 times just to make sure that there are no solids going into it. And I've gotten a little over 8 cups of bone broth from what I made in my crock pot, which is pretty impressive. I'm going to cover this 8-cup measuring bowl with some plastic wrap, and it's going to go in the refrigerator. And this is just for it to solidify a bit, so all the fats will rise to the top, and I will scoop those off. And then I will take whatever liquid is left, and I'm going to put those in some containers. And now I'm going to sift through the bowl of all of the solids that I pulled out of the crock pot. Though there's a lot of meat that was still on the bone, I'm going to pull all this off. I pulled a lot of the big carrots off that are left, some celery and some onions, because I'm going to take all this and I will make a turkey soup that we'll have for supper tonight. So it's a little bit of a process to go through. Just make sure there are no bone chunks that I'm accidentally grabbing to put in either of these bowls. But I think it's worth it because I really don't like to waste anything if I can help it. So I'm going to sift through this and get my piles together. So this is what I have left of a 19-pound turkey. I've got 4.5 pounds of ground turkey. I've got about 5 pounds of other turkey, 8 cups of bone broth, and 2 cups of the meat from the solids dish. Pretty impressive. So tonight I've decided to make a soup with some of the leftovers from the bone broth, and just a simple meal for my family because I just don't want to waste anything. So I've skimmed off the fat and I've heated this up a little bit just so it is more liquidy, and I've got 1 cup containers here that I am going to fill up with the bone broth, and then I'm going to put this in the freezer, and then I can pop these out into a freezer bag. And this 1 cup size is perfect to add into a pan if I'm going to cook rice, or if I'm going to make a bowl of soup or stew. It's just really easy. You can also use ice cube trays because that's like a couple of teaspoons of bone broth, so if you don't want quite as much as a cup. But I like freezing them because it's just a little bit easier for me for storing. I do not have a pressure canner, so it's not easy for me to pressure can my bone broth, and so I prefer to freeze it. But you can also pressure can them, or any other ways you can have them in the fridge for a couple of days, but you do have to use them fairly quickly. So for me, this makes the most sense. So I'll fill a couple of these up, I'll freeze them, and they'll be ready to use for future meals. So here I have my frozen bone broth. I left it overnight in the freezer, and it's always a good idea to mark your freezer bag so you know what is in them. So I've marked it with the year, what it is, and what size it is. And now I'm going to add these from the 1 cup containers into my freezer bag, and these will go into my freezer. And I didn't fit all of them into the freezer, so I do have a second batch in tonight, but I should get almost 8 or 9 cups into this one bag. I'm just taking a knife and very carefully just going around the edge, and it helps these pop right out of the containers. Otherwise, they're pretty frozen in place. So just a tiny bit. I don't even go close to the bottom because I don't want to puncture the container. And these are ready to go back in the freezer, and I can fill it with some more.
Hopefully you enjoyed today's video on the different ways that you can use almost an entire turkey to make future meals for your family. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see videos similar to this, please consider subscribing to my channel. As always, stay safe and be well.